I tried to see if I could remake Billie Eilish's Lunch live on stream in an hour and a half, and this is what I was able to come up with. Also, quick plug, I am a freelance music producer, so if you think we would enjoy working on a song together, check out the link in the description. Now on to the rest of the video. I think we'll start with the drums, just because I feel like that's going to be so much of the groove of this track. It's a pretty simple drum loop. It looks like it's going to be just the standard like Boots and Cats, just the whole way through, it sounds like. I think the biggest thing is going to be getting samples that have that balance of like modern low end, but also like a vintage dirt on them. They sound sampley, and the reason why I say they sound sampley is because they're both just sort of chugging along at the exact same dynamic, just consistently the whole way through. They're also really dry. Might just go straight into disco world. I'm trying to, honestly, I'm finding a lot of stuff that has like the low end meat that I want. I'm trying to find something that has like the right texture on top of it, because I know that's going to be like 90% of the battle. That has the right texture on it. Let's try that. When you're trying to replicate drum sounds, it has very little to do with like actually finding the exact sample that they used in the song. It's a lot more about like, okay, how do we find something that is like of the spirit of that sample, like something that has like the right kind of like vintage modern balance? Like, is the sample supposed to be vintagey, or is it supposed to be modern? Is it supposed to be sort of deep and subby, or is it supposed to feel like more of a live kick drum? Is it supposed to have this like really pristine spitty top end, or more of a muted top end? And so I feel like if you're picking samples and you've got those things generally, you'll be surprised how like the small minutia of, oh, I didn't pick the exact right sample, like it doesn't matter. I would say that's close. It's a little pitched up. We need a little bit of like low end enhancement, because it's got the vintage high end thing that I'm looking for. It just doesn't have like that insane body underneath it. And then use a little bit of a transient designer to just remove some of that harsh attack. I still feel like it's knocking a little bit too much. Yeah, literally let's just cut it out here. All right, so that is our kick. Now we need something that has a snare, but it's also got like that like sort of vintage disco-y texture to it. I like this Young Bass sample. This has the texture on top of it. I want to layer in something that has a little bit more bite behind it. And that's why I saved this sample here, because what we can do now is layer up this guy and add the throatiness. Yeah, let's try Bark of Dog. This is a really useful plugin, actually. This is called the Bark of Dog. It's a plugin version of this physical rack unit called Voice of God, and it's just like the analog version of like a low-end exciter. So you take the frequency you want to boost, and then we're going to layer in this clap sample. Another thing to do is if you're layering clap samples and you see this like little space at the beginning of it, that's not because they want you to throw it on the grid and have it come a little bit before. What they want you to do is grab it on the grid, and then you can just sort of slide it here before the downbeat, so that there's this almost like a whoosh, like whipping into the downbeat. When you're trying to find claps, you want something that's going to emphasize that main snare layer, but also not distract from it. Just add a little bit of texture around it. I do feel like there's a little bit of like a snare, like snares on a snare drum rattling, like pff, there's like a little bit of sizzle underneath it. So what we're going to do is there's a plugin that I have. It's called Snare Buzz. It's made by the same people who make Track Spacer, and it is like almost like a slate trigger, but for like snare wires specifically. So if you want to add like snare wires to any sample that you're throwing in, and how tight are they? That's about what I want it to be. It's kind of like a disco-y snare, a little bit looser. That's our snare group. And then I think the main thing that really ties that whole kit together is the hi-hat, which again kind of sounds like it is a one-shot almost. When you're messing around with Slate Virtual Tape Machine, this bass alignment setting is awesome, because a lot of people, when they try this, they try it, they turn up the input, and they're just like, oh, it's too noisy, it's not usable. But what you can do is you can just take the settings and you can lower the bass alignment. Basically, that just changes how like the input reacts to low end, so it's not as low end focused. So now it's a lot more usable. Then let's get some kind of crash. If you want to make things sound almost like a drummer is hitting some crashes, just take 2 crashes and pan them left and right. And it won't sound even, but it will sound kind of like what they do when they're just sort of double handing stuff. Biggest part is going to be getting the bass tone. Another thing that I think is vital to this is muting it with your hand. Now let's get some guitars going. A couple layers. There's a surf rock one. I'm just gonna have to record these one at a time. Not the exact voicings, but close enough. Then there was one more guitar layer. All right, I think that is all the guitars. There's a little bit of like the circus organ thing. I think that's like a Rode. There's like a drone. There's like some Juno drone just in the background of it all. EQ at the low end. Something kickstart. A little bit of a Juno chorus. Why does that one drone make the whole thing feel like it's more connected? Massive X has like some insane like Morphe basses. All right, so this is how I'm going to try to make that bass sound. We're going to kickstart it. We're going to throw that into Decapitator. Let's duplicate this guy, bring it an octave up. Then to get all these guitars sounding a little bit cleaner, a little bit of Kramer tape on everything. All right, I think that will be it for today. So here, let me show you guys what the final track sounds like by itself.